In this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at some unit conversions, but we're specifically going to be looking at unit conversions that have to deal with areas. Whenever you measure how big an area of something is, you end up with units that are square units. So like in this case, you have square inches and square feet. And when you first look at a problem like this, you might be inclined to think, oh, well, there's 12 inches in every foot, and therefore there should be 12 square inches in a square foot. But it actually doesn't translate over quite that way. Let's go take a look at a visualization to see why that is. So here you have a square foot drawn out. And you notice that the square foot is going to be 12 inches by 12 inches. But it literally forms a square because each of those little squares there represent 1 square inch. That is, it is a square that is 1 inch by 1 inch. Notice that because it takes 12 of them along both sides, we actually end up with way more than 12. In fact, if you were to go through and count up all of those squares, you would find that there were 144 of those little squares that are needed in order to fill up this picture. So that means that there are 144 square inches in every square foot. And in order to be able to get that, whenever you see one of these, the shortcut way to do it is actually to just remember that it is a square unit, right? And so if you take the 12 inches that we had and square it, you end up with 144. So basically, you're saying that since it's a big old square and it's 12 by 12, the area of the square is 12 times 12. Hence how we get that as our final answer, 144 square inches. And you'll notice how I wrote the square inches there. I wrote it as inches to the power of 2. That's a great way to write square inches. Of course, you can also actually just write it out. That also works as a way to be able to represent that same unit. It's written in multiple ways and they're all valid. So if we now go and take a look at another problem along a similar idea, in this case, we're looking to see how many square centimeters are in a square meter. And again, it helps us to remember that we are literally still talking about an area that is a square. A square meter is a square that is 1 meter by 1 meter. But in this case, we want to know how many square centimeters are in that. Well, for that, we have to know how many centimeters are needed in order to be able to equal 1 meter along each side. Well, if this side down here is 1 meter and there are 100 centimeters in every meter, then that means that that length there is 100 centimeters, and it means the other lengths are also 100 centimeters, meaning that if I want to find that area in terms of square centimeters, I'm going to have to do 100 times itself, or in other words, 100 squared, which equals 1. The nice part about multiplying something by 100 is you just add a couple zeros to the end. So that's going to be 10,000. So there are 10,000 square centimeters in just 1 square meter. Let's do one more practice with that idea. In this case, how many square millimeters are in a square meter? Well, hopefully by now you don't have to draw it out, but certainly visualize it at the very least. We do want to be picturing that we have this 1 square meter here that's 1 meter by 1 meter. In this case, we want to know how many square millimeters it takes to fill that. And so we have to know how many millimeters are in a meter. And there are 1,000 millimeters in every meter. So that means that this thing is 1,000 millimeters by 1,000 millimeters. And so I'm going to have to do 1,000 squared to find the number of millimeters in our square meter. And so 1,000 squared is going to be a 1 with 6 zeros after it, which is 1 million. And so we're going to have 1 million square millimeters in just 1 square meter. Do note, I always have to include that word square with it. If we are talking about millimeters and meters, it changes. Square millimeters and square meters, those are the ones that we're talking about right now.